Everything that lives is designed to end.
So in the beginning of this prologue section here, we just have about 4 minutes of like sort of shoot 'em up style gameplay. You have just sort of like your basic top-down plane section. Then you have sort of like a 2.5D mech section, and then there's sort of like a side-scrolling section before we actually get to what the majority of the game is, which is your like 3D ground-based combat, standard platinum style games.
Autopilot systems green across the board. This is Operator 60. All units confirmed. We've passed the 50-kilometer threshold and are proceeding toward the target. Understood. Once you reach their anti-air defenses, proceed to
so just to briefly touch on what they have access to in these SMUP sections. There's your basic projectile. You just hold down the fire button, you get continuous fire. And then you also have a light attack and a heavy attack. The light attack is just like a quick circle swing, and the heavy attack is sort of this spherical shield that lasts a bit longer. So right away you see Reliictz. What he did was he changed to weapon set 2, and what that does is change to where the short sword is in your heavy weapon slot. And that's the setup that we use for most of the combat, is short sword in the heavy slot.
Alert. Enemy unit sighted ahead.
Requesting permission to engage.
So first off, they're going to sort of push this left ship a little. You see on DaleDukk's screen. Just to try and get the AI to help you out and take out those flyers as soon as possible. And you see Reliictz are intentionally getting hit by that laser. That's just so he can use up some recoveries, just to make it so when you access the menu later on to use a melee buff, that it's just removing a few of the down inputs, because the melee buffs are at the bottom of the menu. Getting hit by the laser, you don't lose any time, so just a free time save. And here we see the perspective change. You're just going to see them spamming light attacks. The enemies, usually these flyers will come in from both sides of the screen, top or bottom, left or right. So generally you'll see them sort of do melee attacks on one side of the screen, shoot towards the other side to try to get them cleared as soon as possible.
Operator 60. All allied units down. The operation is compromised. Awaiting further orders.
Operator to 2B. We need you to rendezvous with Unit 9S and begin gathering data on the local terrain.
Understood.
And so now that our entire squad got wiped out, we're going to go meet up with 9S in this factory map here. Just intentionally taking some damage just to use some more recovery items. See him using a light attack. There aren't a lot of situations where the light attack is better than the heavy attack, but when you have a bunch of enemies grouped really, really closely, it is a little faster to use the light attack instead of the heavy. And then sort of the little mini-boss of this section, we get introduced to this enemy that we call the fidget spinner, as you can see on Reliict's screen. That spinning attack is the worst because you have to stay a little farther away, and you're not able to hit the entire enemy. So coming up to where we start sort of the normal combat, what you're seeing here is just Reliictz and Dale doing dashes, doing a dash and then a heavy attack, and that throws out the short sword, and it repeatedly spins and for whatever reason, when you do this attack, it does about 5 times more damage than sort of all of your other attacks. And then we get a medium biped, just throw out that spinning sword. We just refer to it as damage glitch or damage exploit, whichever you want.
Negative. This enemy is unrelated.
And that's sort of,
Dispatch it as swiftly as possible.
You don't say.
that's your bread and butter for combat.
Laser communications recovered.
So this boss here, what you want to do is just damage it down to about half health as soon as you can, and that starts this little sequence where you download your pod program, which at this point is just a big laser. You'll see that a bit later. It's sort of used to take out a bunch of enemies if they're in a line
No, I've got. All right.
or sort of grouped up together. Coming to first little sort of major skip, not major, but it does save a pretty good amount of time. The aerial movement in this game, what you'll see most of them doing, so you have a double jump, but you can do what's called a lift in place of the first jump, which is just jumping and then pressing a heavy attack right after jump, and you get a little more height. So the standard way to gain height is just a lift, a heavy attack in the air, which gets you a little bit more height, a jump, a heavy attack, and then either a dash or a plunge. You just saw Dale take out a couple flyers there with the laser. And coming up here to the hardest skip in the prologue section, this is called Bridge Skip. Reliictz just barely missing it. It's a lift, a light attack, a heavy attack, a jump, a light attack, a heavy attack, and then a plunge. He gets it second try. Nicely done. Normally you have to go and hit some switch or something to lower the bridge, but luckily it's possible to get just enough height in order to get through. You can clip out of the ceiling there. You can use a pod launch, which is jump and pod fire, which sort of you grab the pod and get flung forward. You can also clip out of bounds with that in a lot of places. And that's just a much more direct route to this silo here. So you see Reliictz throw a damage glitch and then
I know.
try and line these stubbies up with a laser. And then we have 2 of these medium bipeds with shields. The enemies in this game, sort of the basic enemies aren't too difficult. Sometimes, probably the most annoying thing that they can do is they will jump backwards as soon as you dash towards them and throw out your sword. So you can use the button that you use for the pod program, like the laser. You can also hold that down, and it gives you a slow motion effect where it slows down everything around 2B. So you can incorporate that in combat as well to kind of keep the enemies a little more still, keep them from hitting you and interrupting whatever attacks you're doing. We see Reliictz here going for
moved it somewhere?
basically this saves about a little less than a second. Okay, he's going to abandon it, but basically you can do some aerial movement to plunge over top of the structure here.
The birds? Yeah, there's more plants and animals.
There are a lot of surfaces in this game that you can plunge into, and you won't actually land on anything. You'll just kind of glide over top of them or glide on the side of them. Plunging is extremely fast movement, so we like to try and use that wherever possible. So it looks like these guys are pretty synced up.
I wouldn't bet on that.
Probably about a second or 2 difference. We'll see what happens on this boss here.
Jamming detected. No response from long-range communications.
Doesn't matter. I'll just take
One sort of strategy that you can do here is try and throw out some swords in the path of the saw. If you can get a couple of those in, you just saw a melee buff used there. If you can get out some damage glitches in the path and it takes damage from that, you can skip using that buff, which saves a couple seconds. But once that's at half health, we'll start the angles fight here. The goal at this point is just to get in as much damage as possible. This is completely timed. You can't speed this up. You're waiting for a certain part of the music, and then a cutscene will start. So at this point, you'll just see them pod firing at angles and just throwing out damage glitches whenever the arms are close by. And you see Reliictz using slow-mo just to just keep the arms there longer, just to deal more damage. It's not required to do a lot of damage here. It just ensures that at the end you only need like 3 heavy attacks instead of 4. Oh, and as far as cutscenes go, pretty much every cutscene you can pause the game and then press A to skip it, or you can just hold B. Pausing is a little faster. So after that cutscene, Angles will do 1 random attack. Looks like Dale got projectiles and Reliictz got missiles, so that's fine. There is one very slow attack that they can do. If they do that long multi-punch attack, you can lose a lot of time. I think it's like 20 seconds, 20 or 23 seconds slower than the next slowest attack. We see Reliictz here on the best pipe. This is the only pipe that you should use if you're running this game and want to get out of bounds. And in this section, you're just waiting for 1 punch from Angles, and then he will progress on to the next phase.
Hacking in.
9S comes in to help you out, and then we have to climb up and get on top of Angles to find 9S.
No response to communication.
One mechanic with this game is if you lift into a slope, you will become grounded again for the purposes of doing a lift, and you're able to do a second lift. So that allows you to skip, just sort of taking the slow movement around Angles. These stubbies here can be a bit annoying. Stubbies have this one attack that we call whirly arms, where they just flail their arms repeatedly, and it can hit you repeatedly, but the bad part is if you're trying to attack, you have to dash first, and if you're dashing close to an enemy that's attacking, you will instead evade. So it can be very, very annoying to deal with those little stubbies if they choose to do certain attacks. And for this section of Angles, he's just going to do random attacks until we reach a certain point of dialogue, and then he will do a scripted punch just to go to the next phase. And so earlier you saw the light attack used a lot. This is the heavy attack. It sends out a projectile as well. Does more damage than the light attack. So they're just using this just to get as much damage on him as possible. There's not much else to do here besides evading his attacks.
On the enemy's upper arm. Use your pod. Should be able to take it over.
I told you to shut up!
So it looks like Dale got really good luck there. What you want to have happen is you want to have Ingalls be finishing up an attack right when 2B says, I told you to shut up, because you have to wait for him to finish whatever he was doing before he will do the scripted punch.
Got it.
Seize its control system.
So usually when you have Ingalls' arm, when you attack with it, the attack is very slow, but you can evade at any point after pressing heavy attack, and then you can do another heavy attack right away. So just 3 more to finish up. And now we'll go back to the bunker here. What you're seeing him doing is dashing and then doing a punch right after. A light attack with bare fists, and that's just ever so slightly faster than just chaining dashes together. So one thing with this run, we don't connect to the network, and we do that just to sort of remove some randomness. It might be possible to find some dead body with some really good buffs that can help you out a lot. Then we just have a quick sort of menu tutorial. Adjust your brightness, adjust your voice volume, and turn on self-destruct. Dale. Okay, there we go. The voice volume isn't required, but it is kind of useful.
Look,
That.
I see.
Oh. The.
Nice.
Huh?
So now they just have to go make their way to the commander, talk to her, and then make it back up to the hangar.
You need to be near an access point to save your data. You can see access.
That looks like Reliictz did a dialogue skip there, if not mistaken. What you can do in this game is you can talk to 9S to bring up his text and then walk forward into a dialogue trigger, and that will cancel the dialogue trigger that you walked into.
The surface? That means we'll be getting flight units, huh? Better head for the hangar. Usually we can't get near flight units. They're way too expensive for us grunts. Too bad they can't mass produce these things yet.
So at this point, there's just another small, short SMUP section. And then we have to make our way to meet the Resistance camp leader.
Hey, 2B, why do you think they sent a combat model like you to a recon job? If all they want is intel...
So you saw that you have sort of like a pod program, the big laser. What you just saw Reliictz do is the same thing, but exclusive to the SMUP section, where you fire out a bunch of missiles instead.
You're going to have some new weaponry installed from here on out. I'll put up instructions for you. Make sure to commit them to memory.
Reliictz with the flick strats, just to take out all those flyers as soon as possible. And then you'll get 2 more fidget spinners here. You can use the missiles to take out one of them. And you kind of saw how, since the second one was doing that spinning attack, he had to sort of space himself to not take damage, because you do not have any recovery items at this point in the game. So it is quite easy to die if you get hit by a lot of projectiles or the that spinning attack. So you'll see Reliictz, he did a dash heavy attack to basically get right into the cutscene. You'll see Dale, he had to do a second or two of slow walking before the cutscene started. So whenever possible, you want to be in the air, or you want to be doing an attack that moves you forward in order to start the cutscene right away, instead of having to slowly walk to where it's like scripted to start.
According to our intel, none of the machines in this area are hostile. We've been seeing more and more enemies like this lately. They just stand there and stare into space. It's pretty weird.
There's another cutscene here, so he does another dash swing into that. Dash swing is just what Dale's doing, where instead of doing a dash and a punch, which is a light attack with bare fists, you do a dash and then a heavy attack with the short sword.
So this is the resistance camp, huh?
So they're going to pick up a quest from the supply trader and the weapons trader. Just your standard fetch quest. Have to go to 2 different areas, pick up some items, kill some enemies, pick up some more items, and then come back. And then we'll be able to sort of progress with the main story.
This must have been quite a city once upon a time. Too bad vegetation's claimed most of it now.
So you could do a double jump and a plunge to make it over that barrier. It's much, much faster than going all the way around.
Here. Say, how's the weather on Earth today? Good?
It's fine. Does that question have anything to do with
The location of these enemies here, they spawn in random positions, so they can try and interrupt you a little. You can use slow-mo while dashing just to keep them where they're at, prevent them from attacking you, from interrupting your dashing. So that's the items for one quest. Then we have to come over here, and there are 3 drops from 3 of these enemies. Good quest from Reliictz. They were all sort of around the same spot. Same thing for Dale.
That's everything the supply trader asked for. Man,
Still very, very close here.
but, huh?
The Resistance is a valuable ally to your help. By helping them, we also help ourselves. So no, I don't think they're a pain.
Yeah.
So coming back to the Resistance camp, they're going to talk to this mass woman. That's required. Then talk to the weapon trader, turn the quest in, and you already have the materials required to upgrade your short sword to level 2, which will add a lot more damage and makes dash swinging faster. So instead of doing dash punches or dash chaining, they'll be doing what we call dash swinging, where you dash and do that heavy attack. So now they're going to make their way to the desert. They're going to stop at the desert camp and do the first set of buying and selling. Well, it's only buys at this point, but there are some items that they need to pick up.
Please make sure you're ready before you go.
And then just going back the same way that they took to do the weapon trader quest, but this time they're just going to go all the way through. So one thing to note is that this game does have automatic lock-on if you're close enough to an enemy and they are on your screen. So usually when going by enemies, you cannot do this dash swinging. You have to just do dashes because the heavy attack will target them. So here at the desert camp, you're going to see them buy some medium recoveries, and then they're going to buy some melee and ranged attack buffs. and basically all of combat, they'll want to be buffed up for that. So we're going to activate this transporter for use later. Dale is just going to stay in bounds, but see Reliictz clipping out of bounds right there in the corner of the transporter in the wall, and then he's going to make his way to the desert barricade from there. It's more direct movement, even though it takes you a little longer to actually clip in. Yeah, you can see how Reliictz kind of pulled ahead a little just from that out of bounds. He's going to plunge between the barrier and the wall to get out of bounds. So we skip doing that little side quest where we have to do some stuff for Jackass. And then you see Reliictz also staying out of bounds here. Unfortunately, falling off the invisible floor and voiding out, that's going to cost some time. Dale just taking the intended route, that cutscene that he just skipped, that is the reason why we go out of bounds here. If you go out of bounds, you can skip that completely. A nice little plunge against the rock there. And just a little bit of a detour here to pick up Pod C. This helps a lot with saving time, having 2 pods. Having 2 pods means we have twice as many lasers. And you can also use a glitch where if you are on Pod A and you hold down the laser button, you will get a double laser from both Pod A and Pod C. That's not the glitch, but Pod A or Pod C does not get put on cooldown when you do that, so you effectively get 3 lasers that you can use pretty quickly. So you can use a double laser on an enemy, and then you still have 1 more. You can use that for slow-mo, or you can just use the laser attack. So coming to what we call Stupid Rock, they're going to plunge into this rock as soon as this quest enemy burrows into the ground. If you plunge into the rock at the right time, you'll get a lot farther in to where you need to be to hit this cutscene. You'll see Reliictz here just plunging on the side of the rock. That'll take him all the way to the cutscene.
What's that?
Analysis. It is the ruin of a former human residential area. Large numbers of humans reside.
So what the game wants you to do here is chase that burrowing enemy all throughout this housing complex. But luckily we have found a way where we can come up to this apartment building and clip out of bounds and make our way straight to the boss instead of having to deal with chasing him. There's a lot of little scripted mini cutscenes. So clipping it out of bounds, the floor ends right where Dale is right now. That's one, I guess, sort of annoying thing about the out of bounds in this game is just because there's a texture there doesn't really mean anything. So you'll see him hold light attack with the short sword on light to do an attack that gives you just a lot of horizontal distance over a gap. So what he did there was there's one trigger that you have to get before you can start this Atom Pit section. You saw Reliictz actually do the Voidless strat where he gets the trigger and then makes it into the pit where DaleDukk voided out. Dale did, I think, change his weapon set there. What he just did was change weapon set 1 to be the same as weapon set 2, and what that lets us do is throw out a spinning sword and then change weapon sets and throw out another one. And when you change weapon sets, it doesn't despawn the sword that you've already thrown out. So once you kill a certain amount of enemies, wow, this is very close, this quest enemy will pop up and you want to destroy him as fast as possible. And from here, you're just going to see them try and kill as many of these pit enemies as they can. We want as much experience as possible, and we also need to get chips. We're looking for a lot of crit drops for use later on. This section has auto looting, so you don't have to pick up anything yourself. The game will pick it all up for you, and for some reason it also picks up everything twice. So you'll pick up like the chip 2 times. So this is just timed, you're just killing enemies, waiting for a cutscene, and right before the cutscene starts, you'll see them just do a self-destruct just to try and take out as many robots as they can before the cutscene starts. So coming up here to Adam, you just want to damage him as much as possible. If you do enough damage, you can skip a cutscene that's just like the first one, where he's sort of like leveling up. It looks like Dale unfortunately was not able to get it. I think Reliictz did though, so that'll put him a little ahead. And then from here you just want to, you're going to see him do this double laser here. He's going to hold down laser, shoot 2 of them, and then he now has the 3rd laser that he's just going to use just to make sure that Adam has been damaged enough. And then the last phase, just want to throw out damage glitches. This phase can be kind of tricky. He can do this like reflection attack, which you just saw on Reliict's screen there. It can be annoying. It can force you to evade, or it can hit you and stagger you out of your attack animation, but good fight from Reliictz. Combat in this game is very, very important. And you could sort of see how much time that Reliictz gained just by having very good combat and a pretty good pattern on Adam.
Let's move to an area with better reception so we can contact command.
And now Reliictz is making his way out of the Atom Pit and to this box here. We'll see if he... Okay, so what he's going to do here is do a pod launch to clip into the wall. He was not able to stay out of bounds. You have to cancel that pod launch with a dash. So he's just going to just take the inbounds route.
9S to bunker. Do you copy?
What he was going for there is you can clip out of bounds, and then you can make it within the save radius of that transporter without starting the dialogue that's going right now on Reliict's game.
Hopefully you can get something out of it.
Because when that dialogue's playing, you cannot save.
Maybe we should...
No.
Doing that where you clip out of bounds and save and then load, it's not much faster for real time. It's mainly, it's much more important for loadless.
2B, 9S. We've lost contact with several Yorha units that were on their way to the surface. Their black boxes are online, so we presume they're still alive. We've tracked the location of their signals.
Next up is the amusement park, so we're going to go investigate some transmissions from some androids that landed in the amusement park.
Target location confirmed. I'm worried about the other androids. We should probably check this out as soon as possible. Looks like
Reliictz is going to try to plunge into this sewer here. He was not able to get it the first try. It looks very cool when you can plunge directly into that into the tunnel instead of having to
There's no point trying to work out unsolvable problems.
get in there by any other means. If you jump and just do a heavy attack in the air, it'll It'll do a brief sword attack, and then you'll go straight down. But it is a little faster to plunge down there instead. You see Reliictz. He was trying to get a double lift off of that tree root, and use that to get above and over the cutscene trigger, but it's not really significantly different time-wise. It's only a couple seconds, I think, at most. So normally you have to go through this little amusement park, but luckily we can plunge out of bounds, do a heavy attack off of that, jump, do some pod spins, and make it so that we can pretty much end up right at the roller coaster that we have to activate in order to make it to the boss.
Think it's a good idea to leave that tank behind?
When you go out of bounds, there is a trigger that you have to hit for the tank, and the way you can tell that if you hit it is when you go up those stairs. 9S asks you if you want to leave the tank behind or not. So we see Dale coming up to the same skip. We call it Let's Play skip because the tank asks you that question. Dale going really out of bounds here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, you have to get right in that corner just to make sure that you hit that required trigger.
So what do you think? I mean, if you want to call me Nines, it's totally okay. Alright.
So no real way to speed up this roller coaster. Looks like Reliictz got level 8, which is great. That'll make the Bavar fight a bit easier. It'll make it a bit easier to save time on. We'll see if Dale is able to get enough experience as well.
Alert. Multiple resistance members detected beneath.
Alright, so what you have to do here is you want to damage Bavar to threshold as soon as you can, and that's just to keep her close to the stage. When she starts this saw attack, if you haven't gotten enough damage in, she'll go way far away from the stage. So good job by Reliictz to keep her close. That saves time. She moves very slowly when she's moving back to the stage. And we have a short little hacking minigame here. Hopefully this is the only one we see. Later on there are the dead androids that can shoot out some projectiles and some shockwaves that can force you into the same hacking minigame. So hopefully we will not see that.
Are we seriously being attacked with dead androids?
Looks like Dale is not able to get the one cycle there. So he's going to have to wait for that attack to finish, and then Bavar is very slowly going to make her way back to the stage. So you can see these projectiles and shockwaves. The shockwaves you can just jump over. That can be a very frustrating section because your camera's kind of wonky. Sometimes the shockwave will come out right as the enemy comes on screen, and you don't really have much time to react to it and jump over it. From here, he's just going to throw out as many damage glitches as he can. He's going to take out some of these dead androids. When you kill some of those, you have a chance to get a small recovery drop, which is useful for the next section coming up. And then you'll see him self-destruct right after the fight's over.
Thanks for the assist.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think.
Oh.
So,
What is it?
That machine had some
You saw
pretty
Dale getting
things to
hit
say.
by
It's almost like
Shockwave
it
there,
hatched
forcing him
from
into one of those
Machines
hacking
don't
mini
have
games.
feelings. You said that yourself.
Yeah,
And then he'll just finish up the fight the same way.
Hostiles.
Huh? But I've been...
So going up to that peaceful robot there, he gives you 2 dialogue options. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You just go straight to Pascal's village either way. So just some aerial movement to try and get up on that platform without touching the ladder.
So why don't the machines, or the aliens who created them, attack the bunker directly? They originally came here from outer space, right?
Well, there are a few theories about that, but no one knows for sure. Hard to tell what an alien is thinking, you know?
They all have white flags.
Looks like they really don't want to fight.
So Reliictz is just going to activate that transporter and save, then talk to Pascal to get a quest item. Get a fuel filter that he needs to take back to Anemone.
Operator 6022.
Reliictz is going to make his way
Time for your regularly scheduled contact.
to this area where there should be some animals around.
2B here.
He sees
What's wrong?
two moose. He wants a boar.
This operator,
He finds one. Looks like, is that a big boar
when I asked her out,
or a small boar?
turned me down.
Looks like a small boar. But
Honestly, 2B,
now we get to see the best movement tech in the game.
supposed to go on living.
I am definitely
Yes,
not
this is actually faster than just sprinting with the boar.
I don't think I can stand spending one more day in this bunker.
You leaving would be bad.
Boar jumping up slopes especially is very, very fast.
Are you saying you need me, 2B?
All Model B combat units require the assistance of an operator. So,
2B?
that's all. Closing this channel.
So now that we've taken the fuel filter back to the resistance camp, we got another quest item to take back to Pascal.
What do you think? Now do you believe we're not a threat?
Your mouth can say any...
Reliictz taking a death there.
Well, what do you think?
And just a death warp back to Pascal's village, much faster than just running. Normally when you spawn in there, there's some dialogue that you have to wait for before you can actually talk to Pascal. But if you do some pod firing as soon as you load in,
What's that noise?
you can interrupt that dialogue with one of the robot villagers' dialogue.
We're reading a Goliath-class enemy inside the...
And then we see
Looks like there are a ton of other machines...
Dale getting the death warp as well. Sometimes when you shoot the animals, they will run away instead of attacking you.
It's a trap.
Looks like neither of them had any problems with that, so that's good.
I promise you, we were not aware of this information. I realize...
And then from here, we just have to make our way through the city,
For us.
to the flight units.
Coordinates, so let's get going.
On it.
Probably shouldn't get near that guy's feet. Yeah, no. Let's find another route. The flight units should be on the roof of that building up ahead. It'll be dangerous, but we're not going anywhere unless we pass through that.
You see Reliictz sort of utilizing the same sort of skip that he did earlier to get to the supply trader quest. I guess one benefit of having sort of being in the same world, like there are some major changes to it, but a good amount of it remains constant, which means you can sort of use the same type of movement multiple times to get where you need to go. And just climbing up the Metal Gear Solid ladder here. And hopefully, instead of having to fight this Engels that's next to the building, he can double jump in this corner and dash through. Looks like he didn't get quite enough height, but he can get a double lift off of this slanted rock here. And then get enough height to get over the barrier completely. Oh, Engels almost knocking him off the bridge there. If you get knocked off the bridge, it's not quite a soft lock, but when you enter the floor of that building, an invisible wall gets put up behind you, so you have to climb all the way back up, and you can't get close enough to hit Engels unless he like attacks you and his arm gets close enough to you. Very, very frustrating, but first try, back up, no problem. Let's see if Dale can get it. Just double jump dash. Wasn't quite able to get it either. We'll see him going for the same backup here. The backup isn't too much slower. Not a big deal in a race situation. And then Reliictz just taking out the other angles, the required angles with two of those missile pod programs. Yeah, the Engels hitbox in this situation is a little wonky, so even though the missiles shoot out in a circle around you, if you're in the right spot, all of the missiles will hit.
We've intercepted a signal belonging to the aliens. These are the creatures that are in direct command of the machine life force.
So now we see Reliictz making his way to the city ruins to start what we call negotiations.
It seems to be underground. Like way underground.
Guess we'll see once we get there.
Yeah, so it's not obvious, but when you plunge all the way down there while that commander dialogue's still going on, you actually glitch the game into basically leaving the communications channel open the entire time. So when there's more dialogue, the ringing at the beginning won't happen. It'll just start the dialogue right away because you're sort of always in like a call state.
I like it in the database.
Hey?
You.
2B, look out!
My name is Adam. The aliens you seek are no longer here. They were wiped out centuries ago by us.
So once you get to the alien spaceship here, we're just basically waiting for Adam to stop talking. Again, not much to do here.
Machines are weapons capable of evolution. We can grow.
Reliictz buffing up. That loses a few seconds, but it does make it a lot easier to kill Eve. Normally we don't buff up just because it does lose a tiny it loses a tiny amount of time, but another thing that we can do while we're waiting for the dialogue is actually get out of bounds and do some other stuff. So you're going to see he's going to evade an attack and counterattack.
Why that?
That gets enough height to where you can do your standard lift heavy, jump heavy, self-destruct heavy to get enough height to get over that barrier there, and then get on the bridge. Camera angle, as you can see, is quite wonky, so you sort of have to use the mini map to make sure that you're on the right spot. Once you're on the bridge there, you can just do standard lift heavy, jump heavy, self-destruct heavy to get enough height to get over a second invisible wall. And going back in the tunnels here, you can do a couple things here. There is a chest full of titanium alloys that you can pick up. It is possible to upgrade the short sword again. It requires luck though. There are 2 types of items that are just random drops, so it's not a guaranteed thing, but you generally have time to pick it up as long as you can clip out fairly soon. And the benefit to killing these enemies is not only for experience purposes, but also so that it also makes movement back through the tunnels a little easier. So we see Dale doing the same thing, using the counterattack to get enough height to get over the wall.
Stop complaining.
Yeah.
And so now that Reliictz has taken out these enemies, he's able to do dash swings through the section instead of just purely chaining dashes together.
Care to fill me in?
Transporters?
And again, that's because there is auto-targeting in this game, and if an enemy is close enough to you and on your screen, you will attack towards it. So now we have to go to the bunker and talk to the commander, and then there we just have to warp to Pascal's village, and then we begin the forest portion.
That concludes the defense of your unit under.
You'll see Reliictz doing another one of those NPC dialogue cancels where he talks to 9S and brings up his dialogue, then walks into a dialogue trigger. That will just cancel the dialogue that is supposed to play. And we'll save you just a couple seconds. So going back to Pascal's village here, this is going to be the second place where we do some shopping. You need to sell your small buffs, and so you're going to sell small buffs, going to sell the machine cores that you picked up from the bosses. Those sell for 10,000 each. You have 4 of them, so that's basically going to fund you for the rest of the run. So first he's going to check the weapon shop, see if he has the items to upgrade. He does not, unfortunately. It's pretty uncommon to actually get the materials. He's going to sell his small buffs here, sell the machine cores, and he's going to sell a bunch of HUD chips here. He's going to sell everything from objectives down, text logs, save points, damage values, control, and then he's going to buy a bunch of buffs here. Looks like he's going to buy defensive buffs as well. This does lose menuing time, but it also makes it so it's a lot harder for bosses to kill you. There are a lot of bosses that can kill you in 2 hits, so with the buffs, it makes it a lot safer. It looks like he's going to equip his chips right now. The resilience chip, which I'll mention, looks like he got very unlucky. He only got 2 shockwave chips. What we're looking for is crit chips. There's just like normal crits, there's crit +1, crit +2. Crits are very, very useful because they do like 5 times damage. So that in conjunction with damage glitch and buffs and taunting, allows you to do a lot of damage. Let's see what
No, I...
Say, 2B,
what Dale got.
when do you think you'll be willing to call me Nines?
Looks like he just equipped some evade range chips.
Yeah, but
And also what Reliictz was going for there, he was trying to get a double lift off of that ramp in order to get over the cutscene trigger for
You should work on keeping your opinion
this
in
side
check.
quest
You are an
between the
emotional, remember?
mother and son robots. We call it mom skip.
this must be the commercial structure.
It's not that long of a cutscene,
Records say it was once a facility known as a shopping center.
but it is annoying to have to wait.
No getting...
So you see Reliictz doing another 9S dialogue skip here. This one is more important than the others because the dialogue there is probably like 10 or 15 seconds long, so being able to skip that and fight these bipeds right away
Getting distracted.
Well, what do you expect?
is a big deal.
Check this guy. He's just running away.
Yeah, if you don't get enough damage on that last robot, sometimes it's kind of hard to chase him down. That's where slow-mo plays a big role in speeding things up, making it so it's almost impossible for him to get away from you.
Looks like the forest is just ahead.
Yeah, and we see Dale using slow-mo just in combat, making it a lot easier to take those robots out. Yeah, your optimal combat really is going to involve doing that double damage glitch where you throw out a short sword, swap weapons, and do it again in conjunction with using slow-mo. The thing about if you're using slow-mo, you cannot heal and you cannot change weapon sets, so you have to do slow-mo, cancel it with the pod fire or something else, and then slow-mo again. Not something that's required by any means, but it can make a lot of boss fights much more consistent.
How are we supposed to reach that?
And of course, if they're doing less attacks, there is less chance of you getting hit and dying. But the resilience chip that both of them equipped, it gives you super armor as long as you're over 80% health. So any attacks that hit you when you're over 80% health, they won't interrupt your attacks, or they will not stagger you. So you see Reliictz coming up here to what we call Rainbow Road. Going to do a bunch of pod spins here and make it over that big gap to get to the castle right away instead of having to take a much longer path. And you're going to see an attempt to clip out of bounds in the corner between this tree root and the wall. And then instead of going inside the castle, we're just going to go outside the castle, just do a lift and a heavy attack and a jump to just climb up these windows, get up top, do one more to get on these stairs that are out of bounds, go back inbounds. We have to go to the right just to hit a story trigger that will allow us to start the A2 fight. You see Dale doing the other version of this root clip where you dash and then do a bare fist light attack. You can clip out on both sides. It's really just preference. The one that Dale did, it's a bit easier. The angle isn't as strict, but the one that Reliictz did is a bit faster because you don't have to go around the backside.
Annihilation recommended.
Annihilation? But why?
Let's go, 9S.
So up here to the A2 fight, this is a very, very tricky fight. You want her to just sort of, to kind of either stand still and just do attacks, or you want her to get sort of caught up in that juggled state. Slow-mo, if you are very good at doing slow-mo with double damage glitch here, it makes this fight a lot easier, but she can still sometimes still choose to run off the side of the screen and do that attack where she dashes across the entire screen, and I don't believe that you can damage her when she's in that state. And you also want to finish her off as far to the left as you can, just so she has less distance to travel. You can also she'll sort of stay in hit stun as long as any attacks are going on. So once you reach that threshold, you wanna stop attacking her as soon as possible. 9S can sometimes troll you a little too. And you saw Reliictz get enough height to get over an invisible wall. Normally you're supposed to jump off of the castle and follow A2, listen to a lot of dialogue, then warp to Pascal's village. But luckily we can get enough height to plunge over that invisible wall and take the other teleporter back to Pascal's village without needing to listen to all of that dialogue. Yeah, and then you'll see Dale doing the same thing. This one's kind of tricky. You have to get close enough to the wall, but not close enough that it opens up a text box and tells you to go back the other way.
Let's stay sharp and head back to the resistance camp. We should run a check on our consciousness data and resupply.
Then after talking to Pascal, we have to go back to resistance camp, and we'll make our way down to Flooded City. And then the shore to start Grun, basically.
Why did you ask Pascal about A2?
Huh?
It's not recommended to interface with machines without consulting command.
So you see Reliictz go over to the side area here just to bring up some dialogue.
Don't forget it.
That will cancel the one that's already playing. It's a little bit shorter, so it enables you to talk to Anemone a little quicker, and then you're going to see just checking the weapon shop just to see if he has the materials to upgrade before clipping out of bounds. You just jump between that box and the machine. It'll clip you through, and then you can just dash through the fence and make your way. Ooh, this is going to be tight. He might be able to make this. Oh, very close. You have to get close enough to a teleporter down there to activate a cutscene. Looks like still didn't quite make it underneath. You have to wait to do your pod spins until you are underneath that building. It's very easy to jump too soon and not be able to make it, but he gets it. So a bit of a chance for Dale to catch up, actually, if he can get this first try. And then after getting that teleport cutscene, Reliictz will plunge towards the shore and void out to respawn right by these enemies that you need to destroy.
As long as you perform regular cleaning and maintenance.
So it looks like Dale got it, so he's going to do the same thing, plunge down the shore.
It still feels good.
He's just going to plunge straight back in bounds instead of voiding out. That works as well. This fidget spinner on Reliict's screen can be very annoying. You kind of want to get up in the air, do like your heavy attack, plunge, and then laser in order to take it out before it starts flying all over the place.
I think that's the last of the machines.
And then on Dale's screen, you can kind of see that fidget spinner choosing to just it kind of just runs away from you, and it's very, very hard to hit when it's all the way where it is right now on Dale's screen. So taking out that as soon as possible is a big deal. All right, there we go. So coming up here for Brune, quite long section, probably about 12 or 13 minutes of everybody's favorite shmup mechanics. And so after the first couple top-down sections, it's pretty much an auto-scroller. There are 4 mini-bosses that we have to deal with.
Attention, this is Carrier Blue Ridge 2. Requesting support from any friendly units in range. We've come under heavy fire from the enemy. Our escort ship has taken damage and is unable to engage. We're currently resisting with all remaining support fighters.
So not only is the Resilience champ... oh my god, dude. Not only is the Resilience ship useful in your grounded combat, but it also has its uses in these shmup sections. You can sort of tank some hits from bosses without getting interrupted. If you get hit and staggered when you're in like the flight suit, there's a bit of cooldown time before you can use your pod programs. So having Resilience makes it so even if you take a hit, you'll still be able to use your attacks right away.
I'm picking up a large-scale enemy inbound. Looks to be 2.8 clicks southwest of us.
So this is the first mini-boss, Goliath Flyer. He's just going to buff up and use both pod programs, and then while those pod programs are in cooldown, he's just going to spam heavy attacks. Heavy attacks, as well as having a projectile, they will also destroy all of the enemy projectiles. You see there are 2 types of... There's 2 sort of types of these purple bullets or whatever. Your normal pod fire can only destroy one type, but the heavy attack and the light attack can destroy both.
Didn't I kill that already?
What on... If it's that big, we should be able to see it!
Is that a machine?
It's freaking huge!
And then from here we just have a long sort of auto-scroll section until we get to the first generator. So now is bathroom break, refreshment, refill time.
We've got to find another way to damage it.
Oh, before that I want to mention that we have a bounty to skip this section of the game. If you can figure out how to skip this boss, I think the bounty is over $2,000 at this point.
I know, but it's...
So if you're into that, there's some money waiting for you.
EMP generator target confirmed. Marking on map. Proposal: destroy the generator quickly.
The bounty is over $2,000, and you get a pizza as well. Thank you, Foshko. I forgot about that one.
Enemy data obtained from command.
Go ahead.
The only known record of this machine life form is a lone sighting 320 years ago. A Upon reaching land, the unit unleashed a devastating electromagnetic wave attack. All resistance fighters in the vicinity were annihilated.
So basically, if this thing reaches land, we're screwed.
Affirmative.
And apparently there's a caffeinated alcoholic beverage as well. Man, we really need to get this like in a spreadsheet, so it's easy to add to and refer to. Coming up to this first generator here, there are 4 outside nodes and then a big node in the middle. Each node takes about 5 or 6 light attacks. Ideally what you want is to destroy both nodes on each side before the core rotates. It's possible to get trolled pretty badly by these rotations here. If you don't finish off both, you can lose some time to, say, the core rotating like a full 180 degrees instead of 90 degrees. But Reliictz managed to salvage that.
Eliminated. Preparing for satellite laser strike.
And they will be using pod programs on the middle core.
It's got an electromagnetic barrier over
The first middle section, the first generator, the middle section will take 2 pod programs, and the last 2 will only take 1.
Are you your
And that's just because for the first one you have 9S, but for the second 2 it's just you by yourself.
Don't worry, we'll take it from here.
And as far as 9S being there, in these shmup sections, 9S can steal your experience if he gets the killing blow on an enemy. So it is possible for 9S to get the killing blow on that first core and leave you at a bit of an experience deficit.
We've got mortars lining the shoreline here. All the EMP shielding in the world won't help.
And that's also true just for the basic flyers as well. They don't give a lot of experience, but there are a ton of them, so that adds up.
I'll help in.
This thing's armor is too thick. We need more firepower.
2B, let's try for a more direct approach.
Direct? Oh, right.
That's right. Lay down some fire in its stupid mouth.
That enormous machine is an ancient weapon. It was designed to help annihilate the androids, but it wound up going out of control. I was part of the machine's network when it happened, so I remember it. The moment it reached land, it went berserk and began attacking everything in sight. No one could figure out how to stop it. We eventually marooned it deep in the ocean, but it seems to be searching for a way back. Huh.
Hey, 2B, I think I have another idea. You keep that thing right where it is, okay?
What?
Please, 2B, this is gonna work.
NieR is leaving the front lines. Proposal: NieR should be reported to command as a deserter.
No! He has a plan. Just hold on.
I'm going to see if we can use those missiles back on the shore. But I need you to destroy the EMP unit on that thing's back. Otherwise, they're just going to go off course.
On.
as you can see, the timing there to destroy the nodes on both sides is very, very tight. You can use missiles to hit it while it's in sort of an untargetable position for everything else, but that does not do much damage. Dale could catch up a little if he's able to have a good Core 2 fight. So we'll see what kind of rotation it does. Okay, so it is possible for that to rotate a full 180 degrees, so both nodes are still untargetable and you have to wait for another rotation. Thing that's not quite immediately obvious about these core fights is like each one has a slightly different camera angle, so you have to hold different positions on the sticks for, you know, it's just standard left and right, but the angles that you hold are slightly different for like the pod fire. And you saw Reliictz get trolled a little there by the core rotating 180 degrees, keeping that one node untargetable. Another chance for Dale to possibly gain a little bit of time. Almost kills that node. Very, very close.
To bunker. Come in.
So now that the worst part of the run is over, we make our way from the shore to the city ruins to take an elevator up to copied city.
I need a status report.
Roger that. In regards to the giant machine...
You'll see Reliictz did a void out there just to get close, get placed closer to where he needs to be, and there's another smaller one right here.
We're having trouble getting them back online, which means data uploading is currently unavailable in some areas.
Where's 9S?
Yeah, about that. We picked up a faint black box reading.
So coming up to what we call a copied city clip, you can clip out of the sewers here and plunge down to the elevator instead of having to go all the way through the sewers and go all the way down to the bottom of the city ruins and take the tunnels.
Let me know, okay?
Will do. To be out.
Oh, looks like Reliictz is just going to take the intended route. I can't say I blame him. It's a very, very hard clip.
However, a dynamic scanner is required for
Very, very hard to do consistently on a controller.
Said dynamic scanner may be located in the resistance camp. Proposal. Further information should be obtained.
Okay, looks like Dale's going to go for the clip here. He could catch up a bit if he manages to get this relatively quickly.
The cause appears to be an EMP attack from a gigantic machine.
And he's just using the what we call a heavy hold, just holding forward, walking, and holding heavy attack. Again, this clip is very, very hard. It's probably the hardest one in A ending. So there we go. He manages to clip out, and he's going to plunge down to the tunnels. On PS4, you have to wait a little bit longer for the elevator to load.
It is unlikely the Yorha units came this far on their own. Hypothesis. The enemy must have placed them here deliberately.
So normally you have to wait something like 90 seconds for Adam to stop talking here. So what we're going to see Reliictz do is attempt to clip out of bounds on this cube,
The more human records
or using this cube.
the more charmed I am by their complexity. This city is
And then he's going to sort of jump between that cube and the wall in order to get clipped out of bounds and make his way back to the elevator. Usually when you enter that cutscene, you get an invisible wall, preventing you from getting back to this location, but by going out of bounds, we can go around it. And he's going to bring the elevator back up, and when you enter the elevator from here, the pod will talk to you, tell you to go look for 9S, and that will actually cancel Adam's dialogue.
the core of humanity is conflict.
Proposal. Prioritize.
So it looks like Dale got the clip a little quicker, so he should save a little bit of time here
I have
compared
severed
to
my connection
Reliictz.
to the network. Now, let us embrace death.
So second Adam fight here can be a little tricky. Reliictz has defensive buffs, so dying should not be an issue. This is one of the bosses that can two-shot you very quickly.
I don't have time for you.
He has a projectile attack where you can shoot 2 projectiles
9S.
very quickly, and if you're not quick on healing, very easy to die. But once the dialogue starts here, you're just waiting for it to finish, and then you have to shoot him one more time to change to the final phase. So what you're hoping here is that Adam just doesn't teleport, just does basic attacks like he did there. That was a good ending for Reliictz. And then they're going to load back into the resistance camp and make their way to factory.
Damn.
There's another NPC dialogue skip here. Instead of using 9S, we're going to use this NPC by the computer. He's going to open up the dialogue.
Report. Mail notification
Okay, he was
received
not
from
quite there's sort of a circle around Anemone where once you pass it, you get the commander dialogue.
Analyze current trends among the machines.
Or excuse me, he did get it.
Something
I'm
tells
sorry.
me this is
But
going
there's
to
some
take a long
very
time.
long dialogue there.
proposal.
But you can cancel that and then talk to one of the shop NPCs to
Might know something.
cancel another set of dialogue, and then you can pick up the mail from the resistance camp
Oh,
teleporter
hello, Chippy. Do you
instead of
I need to know if you've seen any new trends
instead
or
of
behaviors among the
what
machines.
we used to do was get this teleporter by this bridge here and get the mail from there.
By some machines that
But
disconnected
obviously
from
that's
the
slower.
network. They wanted to discuss a peace treaty.
Because we want to start this dialogue with Pascal as soon as possible so that it's finished by the time that we get to the factory entrance.
I believe they're working on building a colony of their own.
You don't say.
Indeed. Apparently it's located in the abandoned factory. I can give you the coordinates if you'd like.
Please.
I was actually planning to go speak with them myself, you know. Maybe we can meet up over there?
Sounds good.
Target location data obtained. Marking on map.
Okay, so looks like Dale ended up having to do the old strat where you take out these stubbies and then grab the mail from here. Reliictz going for a safety save here before factory. He does have the lead, so can't say I blame him for that.
Oh, to be. Hello. The machines who seek to form an alliance with my village are hiding out here. Still, you should probably be careful. We machines can be rather...
And Dale just killing some of these stubbies here just because he has
Yes.
a little bit of time. He has to wait for
With each other,
the dialogue to finish.
of course. But I find
with
that
Pascal.
knowledge contains many ways to hide one's true intentions.
It certainly does.
You enter the domain of God.
So we'll see if Dale chooses to save here. Okay, looks like he's going to take his chances. Just trying to take out some of these stubbies just to get some extra experience. So we're just waiting for this robot to slowly walk to the elevator and open it for us. There's no way to skip this. We haven't found anything that would let us progress without waiting for this robot. So this section of factory is it's pretty difficult. If Reliictz gets all this stuff fairly quickly, he'll have an even bigger lead, but it is very, very easy to lose a lot of time here. So it's still anybody's race at this point. It only takes one mistake to set you back a couple of minutes.
Hello. My name is Pascal. I'm here to discuss the peace treaty.
So here in this Mook's room, you can either kill a bunch of these in order to open up the elevator, or you can come over here to this corner and pod launch your way out. What that'll do is, as you void out, that'll despawn the enemies and respawn them, and that'll also open the elevator. So you see Reliictz just doing some slow-mo here just to keep those robot enemies as far away as possible so they don't prevent or block Pascal from getting inside the elevator. Sometimes Pascal will just kind of stand there and not do anything. So that first try clip, very good. I think that saves around 7 seconds or so over just destroying as many mooks as you can. And then he's going to do a lift here and another pod launch to try and clip out of bounds. This is what we call the 9S room clip. If you clip out of bounds, you'll respawn and you can take the same elevator that you just rode back up and do another out of bounds skip. So it looks like Dale clipping out of bounds as well. So there are multiple versions of this clip. Looks like Reliictz he was trying to get on top of the pipe and I think do a heavy hold. There we go. Clips through. And he's going to void out and get right back on the elevator. If Dale manages to get this first or second try, he'll be significantly closer. Let's see what he does here. Okay. Nicely done, first try. It's very good. There are a lot of different options to clip out of bounds there. That one takes a little longer, but if it's consistent for you, that's probably what you should use. The second clip, you have to fall and okay.
The door's open.
Okay, so the goal there is to fall down and hit a dialogue trigger that's right around those doors, right before you void out. You'll respawn back up where you clipped out of bounds, and then you can plunge down to the area that's right outside the boss room. Unfortunately, he landed on a platform right before that, so he has to take a bit different of a route here through the crushers. We see Dale also landing as well, so he'll have to do the same thing. This crusher section is very, very scary because if a crusher hits you, you're dead, and it's a huge setback. It starts you way farther back in factory. Looks like Dale made it through, or Reliictz, I'm sorry, made it through without much of an issue. We'll see how Dale does. You can actually go over top of the crushers, which is a bit slower, but it's much, much safer. You see Dale doing slow-mo just to try and get as much time to get through those crushers as he can. Slow-mo does work on the crushers. That's a very good idea. So Reliictz activating the enemy, the elevator to get to the enemy. I'm gonna go down and fight Soshi. Ooh, that was an intense segment there. Things can get a little messy when you don't get the DaleDukk trigger and the void out. So Dale has like consistently been about around 20 seconds behind, 20-30 seconds here in factory, so still very, very close. Yeah, crushers are absolutely terrifying. You lose a lot of time if one kills you.
I got it. I've been keeping an eye on you. I'm gonna shut off power to the factory now.
Do it!
Factory system at 80% control. Hang in there, 2B. 90%. 92. 95. 98. I just shut down the electrical grid.
Enemy shield deactivated.
So neither of these guys have crit chips, so this fight is going to be a little bit more annoying than it could be. When Soshi chooses to do the attacks like this, it can be very, very annoying. But opting to go for the leg breaking strat, you can attack one of the legs, have it breaks, and then he gets put in this down state with his tail out, and you can just put a bunch of damage on him without really dealing with his attack phases at all, which is nice. So Reliictz here making his way out of factory. He's going to beginning to a section of factory that we saw in prologue, and he's going to do pretty much the exact same skip. So it's like I said earlier, you come back to the same area. It's a little different, but you can still use basically the same methods to like clip out of bounds or whatever. The only main difference is here you have to do a double jump and then a pod launch to get through that second wall, and if you don't do a double jump, you will auto-target some of the robots that are standing around, and you'll go flying towards them instead of the wall that you want to clip through. So from here, Reliictz is just going to make his way back to the resistance camp.
No thanks.
Trying to just do some pod spins there just to stay high enough to where he can plunge and make it all the way down to the ground. Almost got it.
I see.
Okay, yeah, Dale is sort of stuck in this little corner here. Sometimes it can be very, very annoying to actually get out of there. Yeah, if you don't cancel your pod launch after you do manage to clip out, you can just fall in the lava and then you have to take the intended route.
Let's move.
It's not that slow, but very, very frustrating getting like stuck in that corner there.
Why are their numbers increasing like this?
Cause unknown.
Try contacting the bunker via laser relay system.
Affirmative.
Also, yeah, both guys I believe are on PB pace still, so very, very cool to see. So back in the Resistance camp, you just have to clear out this section of all of the enemies that are here. A little bit of a 2D side-scrolling thing going on here. There is a bit of randomness in these medium bipeds. They have different death animations, and sometimes you can get a bunch of very slow death animations, which prevents you from throwing out a damage glitch far enough to hit the stubbies that are in the back there. And of course, you can always get a whirly arms, forcing you to do a bunch of evades instead of throwing out a sword. And that's it for Resistance Camp. We're going to go back to Anemone and start the boss rush section. Gonna go fight another boss, basically the same as the factory boss. This one is Bokushi. So this water is normally electrified. Since we have the Reliictz ship, we can just jump right in without getting stunned. Use some healing items while we're buffing up, just to make sure that he doesn't take any deaths. So just throwing out damage glitches, healing up whenever he gets hit. With the defense buffs, this fight is pretty safe. So a bit unlucky there. Bokushi's going to do a couple attacks and just roll around way out of your range. Kind of just have to wait for him to finish this before he'll continue with his death animation. And then you see Reliictz just do a self-destruct at the end, try and take out some more stubbies, get some more experience. So we have Core 1 here. Normally it floats a little bit above the ground, so you can bait it over to the hill here where it's a lot easier to hit with damage glitches. It's more level with you. And that allows you to make very, very short work of it. So nicely done by Reliictz there. Dale opting to do just slow-mo damage glitches while the tail is out, just to sort of makes it easier to fight this boss when you don't have to deal with its attacks.
They're still coming? What do we do? There's too many.
2B? 2B, can you hear me? Our village is under...
Pascal? Come in, Pascal! Shit!
DaleDukk should get the death animation right now. Yeah. Ooh, taking a lot of damage there. Not managing to get the self-destruct off. So he's going to do the same thing that you just saw. Get it, pull it up on the hill here, and then buff up and just throw swords out. It's a little bit lower than you'd like to be. There we go.
They're here too.
So Reliictz over here at the barricade to Pascal's village has to take out these enemies and then start the second core fight.
Take these guys out first.
It's gonna try and hit it with some damage glitches. When it's in the air, the hitbox is a bit wonky. It's a lot bigger than you would expect. When the core drops, just throw swords on it.
You saved us. Oh, thank you so much.
What happened here?
The machines on the network all went berserk at the same moment. I think the unit presiding over
And then he's gonna make his way to the final boss of A ending.
If we destroy this presiding unit, will it stop the rest?
Most likely, yes.
Pod, I need you to locate Eve's current position.
Location has been detected and placed on map.
We'll take care of Eve.
You just worry about keeping the village safe, okay?
Do be careful.
Reliict's gonna try and hang out with Eve for a few seconds before the fight starts. So we have 4 phases of Eve.
Why did you kill my brother?
First 2, he's just gonna buff up and just throw damage glitches out. The only real problem that you can run into with this fight is he chooses to do what we call platforms. He summons a bunch of concrete platforms, jumps on top of them, you have to follow him up. He loses a lot of time, but Reliictz manages to avoid that attack completely.
Seems to be coming from a large number of linked machine life forms.
He's absorbing the life force of whatever's left on the network.
Damn it.
Then he's just going to regenerate all his health, and
Try hacking into Eve and shutting him
phase 2, basically the same in this case as phase 1, just throwing out swords,
9S, well, he hacks the system.
while 9S
The enemy is connected to a
tries to hack in.
analysis. The actions of Unit 9S have an unacceptably low probability of success. Proposal. Unit 2B should abandon Unit.
If 9S says he can do it, then he will!
Enemy unit cut off from network functionality.
Finishing up phase 2, so phase 3 and 4, Eve will just be floating around, throwing projectiles at you. You just need to keep him taunted, and you need to stay buffed up. You can just pod fire with him, you can use your pod program lasers, you can try and get up close to him and do heavy attacks in the air and a plunge, like you see Reliictz doing, followed up by a laser. Yeah, it looks like both these guys have about 3 minutes of load time, or like 2 minutes 50 seconds of load time. So if you want the loadless time, subtract about 3 minutes, and that's a good estimate.
Alert. NFCS destroyed. Close range combat no longer operable.
So last phase, you have nothing but your just pod fire, so just stay buffed up, keep Eve taunted, and hope that he's nice and stays close to you. Because the lock-on for the pod fire is very inaccurate at long ranges. Looks like he's being very nice.
Alert. FFCS destroyed.
So there we go. Looks like it'll be just about a 144 even for Reliictz real time. So it's about a 141 loadless. A low 141. A low 141.
from the bunker.
But you'll lose you.
We'll check all that out later.
This
But
very moment.
Guess
congrats to Reliictz.
upload this corrupted data to the bunker. So
Hey Reliictz, congrats.
Yes.
Thanks.
That was a PB, correct?
Yeah, it was. It was such an up and down, god damn it.
Yeah.
I had like 5 goals, and it's just like 1 minute faster, and like, meh.
Yeah. The factory was pretty scary.
Yeah. I really don't like that part.
I think both you and Dale had the same thing happen on the second part.
Oh, I see.
On the void out strat. Just landing and having to take the intended way. And deal with crushers as well.
Oh my god.
The scary stuff.
But he was quite close to me, right?
Oh yeah. For a while there, he was only about... He was like 20 or 30 seconds behind for a large amount of the run, I think.
Nice. So it was a interesting race for you guys, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely anybody's race for like pretty much all of it. You know, like one bad mistake or a death or something.
Yeah. I thought at Factory I was like, okay, I'm done. I was so ready to die to Crushers. Or
That's
to
incredibly
the-
scary.
Or to the robots that blow up.
I must have been corrupted when
They're
I detached
also
from my
pretty
network.
scary.
It's okay.
And we have Dale finishing up here.
Backup data from the bunker.
But you'll lose you.
I believe that's a PB as well
This very moment.
for Dale. So congrats to him if so.
Yeah, congrats.
This corrupted data to the bunker.
I don't know if his time on speedrun.com is the most up to date. If so, he just PB'd by a lot.
What's his time?
Looks like he got a 146.05 real time. Hey Dale, congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats, dude.
Was your previous PB the like 151 real time?
151, yeah, so that
Okay,
was a 5-minute PB.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
congrats.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, for most of the run you were, or most of the race, you were really close behind Reliictz. Seemed like pretty much the entire race.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing in chat, but I didn't want to like pull up the stream during a load, just in case I would make myself nervous or something.
Yeah. Any thoughts about the race?
I mean, I wasn't expecting a 5-minute PB, so it went pretty well, I think. I think we put on a good show.
Yeah, very close. And each of you guys have one more race coming up.
True.
Yep.
Let's see, I think I need to race you, Dale, actually, and
Yes, you
Reliictz is going to race Unity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, congrats on the double PB.
Yeah, I've been hearing there's a lot of PBs in this tournament so far. Hopefully more to come.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of having like about a month for group stages is people get a chance to kind of practice up and get used to like the race environment. Do you guys have any other thoughts? Anything you want to mention?
I mean, backup city angles strats was pretty nervous. I was nerve-wracking rather.
Oh, the double lift backup.
I thought I was gonna have
Yeah.
to fight him again.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be very rough. Like if he chooses just to like do punches instead of use projectiles or whatever. All right. Well, I'll just everybody follow these guys. Follow Dale. Follow Reliictz. And you can also check out the rest of the scheduled matches that we have going on, all the ones that are finished and all the ones that we still have to do. I think this group stage ends in a few weeks, and then we'll start the 16-person double elimination tournament. So I think we probably still have, what, around maybe 15 matches or so left in groups. Something like that. So keep an eye on the schedule for that. Yeah, thanks to Dale, thanks to Reliictz, thanks to Speed Gaming for helping us out a lot. You guys have any parting words?
I mean, thanks to the commentators, so MT, I think it was Marble Soda the other day, anyone else who's been commentating, and all the hosts, especially Speed Gaming, for letting us show off a really cool speed game.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for hosting and commentating and organizing this.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Congrats on the PBs again. And we'll see you for the next match, which I believe is Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. See you later.
See ya.
See ya.